Exactly. I'm working 16 hours a day. I'm working weekends. And she says, why don't you use that energy to run your own business? And of course, I did what every husband would do. I said no.
This is Small Business Celebration, where we introduce you to successful small business owners at their place of business so that you can learn something that you can use today to grow a strong and profitable business and get your next big breakthrough. Welcome to another fantastic episode here on Small Business Celebration. We're going to be talking about, okay, I've got a seasonal business, but how do I keep my top talent? We're also going to be talking about, okay, at what point during the year does my business actually become profitable? And to guide us through all that is Juan Ortiz, the owner of F&J Transportation. Welcome to Small Business Celebration.
Thank you.
And for Visioneers who don't know who are you and what is it that you do?
My name is Juan Ortiz. I am the co-owner of F&J Transportation. We are a transportation provider for mostly students and school districts in our area.
More specifically, you're in the charter bus business.
That is correct. We own charter buses, not school buses. So therefore, activity trips that involves the local school districts in our area, they contract us so that we can transport their students.
And this would be for like school field trips, sporting events, those kinds of things?
Any sporting event, which would be baseball, basketball, football, softball, volleyball, you name it. So we are contracted to transport sport group to their destination, whether it be close by or far out. We also get contracted to transport students to museums in the Los Angeles area, such as the Natural History Museum, the California Science Center, La Brea Tar Pits. In addition to that, you also have marching bands,
right,
where we transport the marching bands as far south as Huntington Beach or as far north as Fresno.
All
Stanford,
over
UC
up and
Davis.
down California.
All up and down California. That's what we do.
So I have to ask on this is because I know every taxpayer who's watching this show is going to be asking, well, doesn't the district already hire school bus drivers? Why would a school district need to hire you?
Main reason is because the school bus driver that tends to transport the students to and from school, while they're not available at certain times and are not able to drive long distance to transport.
Isn't that usually because the school bus driver starts at like 6 in the morning, then they do the morning pickup?
That is correct.
And then then they have some time in the afternoon, but they have to come back and pick the kids up.
Absolutely. So the students that you take to school, somebody needs to take them back home.
Right.
So
they can't go on a field trip to San
on a
Dimas
field-
or something.
They
Right.
can't go on a field trip to up north or south, east or west,
Right.
because then the kids get stranded at school.
I would also think that for a long trip like that, even if it's to Ridgecrest or they're going out to the coast or they're going someplace further, it's a lot easier on the students because the buses are more comfortable.
That is correct. Remember, on a school bus, you have bench seats.
Right.
On our buses, you have recliner seats. And you also have air conditioning.
And a bathroom.
And a bathroom in the back, exactly.
How did you get into this? Because this is not something that I would just wake up one morning and say, oh, I think I'm going to own a charter bus company for school districts.
Back when I was maybe 22 years old,
Right.
I started driving a school bus. I was employed by a company that's no longer exists, and I became a school bus driver and got into the transportation industry that way. I kind of got my feet settled in the transportation industry by moving up the ladder, then worked my way up into management. But that got me curious as far as there's much more than just student transportation. Going to school and coming back home, there's also a lot that comes into place when it comes to the field trips.
This is also where you started becoming a trainer.
That is correct. I also got promoted to become what's called a delegated behind the wheel trainer, which I was able to get certified by the state of California to train people to drive a school bus.
Right.
And then after that, I moved up again and became what's called a state certified instructor, where now I'm not just teaching people how to do the behind the wheel portion, but I'm also teaching the classroom portion.
Why Bakersfield?
Oh, good question.
Because you're down in LA and, because everything's bigger in LA, why come to Bakersfield?
because I have my credential that I'm able to train, I've also did a lot of side jobs, side works with a lot of small school districts, private schools, where I would come in and give training to people. I received a call from a bus company here in Bakersfield. Now, I'm living in Los Angeles.
Right.
I'm 2 hours away
Right.
from Bakersfield.
Right.
And I got a call from a company saying that we want you to come and train our drivers so that they can obtain their certificate
Right.
and transport students to and from. Believe it or not, is I would, on a Friday evening, I would come drive from Los Angeles and start training Saturday early in the morning, all day, and at night, in the evening, at nighttime, to actually pay for the hotel. And on Sunday morning, start up again, all day in the evening, and head back to Los Angeles on Sunday evening and go work my job. I did that for about 3 months, and I got everybody trained, got everybody certified, and moved forward. That same company that, offered me a job here in Bakersfield to actually run their business. I was actually the business manager of the company. At first I said no,
Right.
And I spoke to my wife. I actually brought her to Bakersfield, drove around, and said, "Do you like Bakersfield?" She said, "No, but I still want to come out here." There was something in her that she wanted to come and said, "You know what, there's something here in Bakersfield for us."
But she's the one that's pushed you
Oh, yes.
to start the business. There's a reason why
Yeah.
she's the F first
Exactly.
in F and J. And your wife's name is?
Flor.
Flor.
So
it's
she's
Flor.
the F and Juan. So it's the F for Flor and J for Juan. And the way that she motivated me or pushed me to become a business owner or for us to obtain our business was when we actually moved to Bakersfield and I started running the company. She realized, hey, you can do this on your own.
You're working too hard for the other guy.
Exactly. I'm working 16 hours a day. I'm working weekends. And she says, you know, why don't you use that energy to run your own business? And of course, I did what every husband would do. I said no. But then she kept on me for about a week or so. And I thought about it. And I remember that one day when I woke up and said, you know what, maybe I should do this. Of course, there was a lot of fear.
Right.
There was a lot of not knowing what the future is going to hold because I was making a pretty decent wage.
Right.
So I didn't want to lose that. I remember coming home and telling her, you know what, hon, I thought about what you said and I'm going to run with it. I'm going to start getting the permits, everything that we need to do in order to run the business.
And if you're looking to move to a better school district that also happens to have a great bus chartering service nearby, Juan Ortiz, might I suggest you reach out to Mike Saba, Zillow Premier Agent with Watson Realty. Born and raised and never left Bakersfield. Give Mike Saba a call at 661-203-8406 or reach him at mikesaba1@icloud.com today. And Visioneers, if you've got a question, you've got a thought, something you'd like to learn about here on Small Business Celebration, reach out to us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, and your question could appear here on Small Business Celebration, just like Mina, who asked, our company operates on a seasonal basis. What strategies can we employ to ensure our top employees return when they are only engaged 7 to 8 months out of the year? Because when you're operating
Yes.
on a school calendar,
Yes.
they have the Christmas holidays off, they have the
yes.
summer holidays off. There's nothing for your team to do.
Nothing. You have a lot of holidays off. Thanksgiving, you have Christmas, you have New Year's. So
How do you keep your team? Because it's hard enough to get employees, but let alone when you're going to tell them, oh, by the way, you're not going to work 4 months of the year.
you kind of have to buckle up and know that there's going to be slow times and there's going to be times where you're going to be out there driving every day. When I was a driver, I know that my boss never rewarded me, so we had to budget and make sure that we got through the slow times. What my wife and I decided to do here at F&J Transportation is give our drivers bonuses. There's 1, 2, 3 bonuses that they get every year. They get a bonus during the Thanksgiving time. They get a bonus at the end of the year, which would be the Christmas, New Year time.
Right.
And they also get a bonus at the end of the school year, which would be in May, June. So that helps them flow through the slow times. In addition, what I've also done is being in Bakersfield for about 7 years now, I've networked with transportation directors in the area. So now this is what we've done. We do what's called the rent a driver. School districts are always looking for full-time school bus drivers.
Right.
How about if you hire my drivers on a substitute basis, which is a part-time basis?
Right.
So what if we give my drivers the training to become a school bus driver? And the days that I don't have work for them, they go over to you. They're working Monday through Friday, transporting the students to and from school. And we work on an and off basis. Our drivers can now go to the school district and drive a school bus. And guess what? Now they're working 5 days a week.
Buying a bus, a charter bus, is not cheap.
It isn't.
How did you get your first bus?
After I obtained all the necessary permits, and we didn't have any money for buses, especially a charter bus.
You didn't have $120,000
No.
to buy a bus.
And that's exactly how much they would go for, somewhere between $85,000 to $125,000. And it wasn't a new bus.
Right.
It was a used bus.
Sure.
Like an older used bus.
Right.
I did have some colleagues that were in the Los Angeles area, and I spoke to one of them, and his name is Frank. I said, "Hey, Frank, look, you're in the business. You've got quite a bit of buses. Is there a bus that you would have around in your yard that you could sell me so that I can start the business?" And I made him aware I've got all my permits in order. I'm just in that last stage where I need a bus.
The last box to tick.
Last stage. To my surprise, Frank said, "You know what? I do have a bus for you. And you know what? I'm just going to give it to you."
Really?
Yeah, I'm going to give it to you. We're going to.
He must owe you one.
He did. He did.
Okay.
I did a lot of training for this guy. I've trained all of his drivers, new, old, you name it. I did a whole bunch of training.
Right.
So he had owed me.
Right.
He owed me big. Now, I got to say, it wasn't the best bus in the lot, right?
Right. But it was something.
But it was a start.
Nice.
That's how we started. So I remember driving the bus out of his lot and driving it to Bakersfield and going, "Whoo, I made it." So
But
maybe
you still had to make payments on it. He didn't
Absolutely.
just give you a blank check and say, "Here's a bus."
No, I did have to make a certain amount of payments on the bus, monthly payments, and the insurance, which was something new to me, something I learned.
Welcome to business ownership,
Absolutely.
right?
Welcome to the business world.
Right.
So that's when I started really learning about what it is to maintain a business.
After that first bus, you needed a second
Correct.
and a third. What prompted you to go ahead and get that second and third bus?
Well, let me step back a little bit. In order to get the first bus, you need workload. The great thing about F&J Transportation is that during the time that I was getting all the permits in order, I was already networking. I was already going to the school districts and making them aware what I was doing. So the great thing that happened with us is by the time I actually got our first bus, I already had a workload. It wasn't like I needed to go and advertise and go, "Mamma mia, what am I going to do now?"
Right.
I got no work. The workload was waiting for me, which was great.
So that's how you were able to afford the second bus, because the workload increased, and
Correct.
so you needed the second bus.
We needed a second bus.
And a van.
And eventually now we have a van as well that we're utilizing to transporting groups as well, smaller groups. So when the workload came in for the first bus, I was actually the driver. My wife was doing the dispatching, HR, payroll, you name it. She was doing everything else. After maybe about 4 or 5 months into it, we saved enough money to buy a second bus. And we purchased a second bus. And because I am the state's trainer, I was able to train the driver to come in and drive the second bus.
At what point did you start working on your business and not in your business?
We purchased one bus, the first bus, I was the driver. Purchased a second bus, got a second driver. Purchased a third bus and got a third driver. After that, we actually had a fourth bus and hired the fourth driver, but then I sold that fourth bus. So that driver now became me.
So that's how you were able to
when I
get
stepped away and the drivers were able to drive the buses. And now I'm doing the dispatching and everything else, helping my wife with all anything that she needed when it came to the technical support.
So you are your wife's assistant.
I absolutely. Yeah. Even though I'm the president and she's the vice president, she's the president.
Have you ever gotten lost
Ah,
driving a bus trip?
absolutely. In this business,
Yeah.
you transport students to certain schools or certain locations or certain destinations where you have never been.
And Google is always right.
Yeah, exactly.
Always right.
Always correct. So there have been times where I'm on the freeway, I got on the wrong freeway, and I had to come back and make a big U-turn, and the students or the group is telling me, hey, you were supposed to go straight. I know now. So now I know. There were times where you're driving this bus at night,
Right.
and you're coming back. And so you get to your destination during the daylight, but once the football game is over, it's nighttime.
Right.
So now you forget and you don't make that left turn or the right turn you're supposed to, and you come to a dead end. Oh my goodness, that's happened to me a couple times. And now you're struggling to back the bus up or make a big U-turn to
Right.
turn the bus around because it's not a car.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's a 45-foot bus. So it gets kind of dangerous sometimes. I've been up in the mountains where we're transporting a group to a certain camp, and I make a wrong turn, and I'm driving in that road thinking, okay, there's going to be a space somewhere where I can turn the bus around, and we're not turning around. Not maybe for an hour and a half before we can, before we can actually turn the bus around or go in reverse, and hopefully there's not another car behind you. Because of our training and whatnot, we implement it and know that we drive safely and be cautious with what's around and make sure that we're transporting the students in a safely fashion.
And that brings us to the Visioneer game. Now, Visioneers, if you're not familiar with the way the game works, I have a random word generator here on my phone. I have no idea what the random words that the generator is going to create, but more importantly, neither does our guest. And our guest has to take each of 3 words that I give him and somehow associate each word with his business. Now, Juan, you do realize that the fate of the entire transportation business is based upon your ability to get these 3 words correct.
Absolutely. Let's see how I do.
All right. Your first word is gap.
There's gaps in the slow times and the fast times of our work.
Uh-huh.
And we also like to enjoy that gap because that is also when we take a vacation.
Nice. 1 for 1. Well done, you. Are you ready for your second word?
Number 2.
Clinic.
When it comes to clinics, we also in our industry have certain clinics regarding providing training for either new drivers or drivers who are renewing their certificates. Clinics are provided by some instructors like me.
Very good. 2 for 2. You do realize it all comes down to this.
Oh, let's do it.
Bolt.
Our buses are made by nuts and bolts.
I love it. Nice. That's 3 for 3. The world of transportation is safe at last.
I made it. Hey, we know everybody's secure now.
And the thing about bolts is that, developing a business and growing as a person and an individual is all about nuts and bolts and putting it all together and building yourself to becoming a better human being. And this is something that you learned by getting fired.
Correct.
What happened?
I moved up in the ranks when it comes to the transportation industry, from becoming a school bus driver all the way up to become a transportation director. The reason I got fired was when I first started the job there was a lot of cleaning up that needed to be done.
This is systematically and bureaucratically?
That is correct. Okay. And that was within transportation department in itself.
Okay.
I did a great job for the first 8 months. Actually, my boss, I remember him calling me a hero.
Right.
After 8 months of working non-stop and trying to clean up the mess that somebody else left behind.
Right.
The problem was my boss retired.
Oh no.
And then
a new regime
came in. Now I had to prove myself again.
Right.
And well, I guess it didn't go well.
Oh no.
They waited till the last day of before my probationary period ended, because I was still on probation.
Oh no.
And it was that last day at right before the clock hit 5 p.m. They said, Juan, do not come back tomorrow. And I went, what? I learned not to give up. I learned that even though you're going to go through a slump, and there are slumps in life,
Right.
you can't lose focus of your dream. Now, my dream at that specific time in life was to become a transportation director.
Okay.
And that's what I was following. I wanted to get back on track and work as a transportation director at any other school district. Little did I know that that dream of being a transportation director came and gone. Now the focus was with my vice president and my wife having a different dream or different focus in our life. Her focus was more of a business aspect. And it was because of her that we got into the business, and everything that I implemented as a transportation director, I now implement in our business.
How did getting fired affect the way you treat your employees?
So the manner in which I got fired was definitely a life experience.
Right.
Therefore, it was an experience. It was a business experience. We treat our drivers as family. We stay in touch with them. We're aware of what's going on with the wife, or we have one driver who's actually soon to become a father.
Wow.
So so we stay in touch with them, make sure
Is he
he's doing
naming
okay.
the child Juan?
I hope so.
Is there such a thing as too many buses?
And yes, there can be. We started off with one bus, went to 2, went to 3, and went to 4. Now, the reason why we went to 4 buses is because there was a need for 4 buses. There wasn't a need for 5, 6, 7, and 8. So therefore, if we would have continued to purchase more buses, they would have just sat in the yard. So as a business owner, you really have to take a step back and look at what is the need, or how much is there a need for your business, and therefore you purchase the buses according to the need and not according to just having the buses sit in the yard.
You transport kids,
Correct.
but do you do party buses? You know, the trip from Bakersfield to Vegas and whatnot?
The answer is no. We
Okay.
don't do party buses.
Why not?
Due to the fact that we transport students, when you do a party bus, there's a lot of alcohol involved. So therefore the bus gets smelly. And the last thing you want to do is have kids get on board your bus and it smells like alcohol.
And that brings us to our second Visioneer question, which is also brought to you by Mike Saba, a Zillow Premier agent serving Bakersfield houses since 1992. Give Mike Saba a call at 661-203-8406 or reach him at mikesaba1@icloud.com today. Visioneer Jaime asks, we are currently in the 3rd year of our business and we're struggling to identify the point in the year in which we reach profitability. How do you determine yours?
I believe it was perhaps into our 3rd year into the business where we actually became responsible, became a little wiser as far as how to move the money around. The first year we had a lot of learning to do regarding budgeting and regarding maintenance of the buses.
You don't know that as an employee.
As an employee, you just drive the bus.
Right.
But as the owner, now you're in charge of making sure that that bus is well maintained. Things are kind of expensive when it comes to a charter bus.
Right.
Especially fuel.
Right.
Fuel is expensive, tires, and everything else that comes with it. And mechanics are not free.
How did you figure out, when you took all these into account, what part of the year that suddenly, okay, if we hit this number, we're now achieving profitability. If we don't hit it by this date, we've got problems.
Yeah, I think where we hit that plateau as far as setting a number as our target. I think that's when my wife wisdom came in, and she's a really good numbers person. And we, after the first year, we realized that we ended the school year with money, But in order to start the next school year, you needed money to start the next school year as well. Because of her handling the ins and outs of what comes in and what comes out regarding finances, she was able to get a target date. But I think that we actually weren't structured on that certain target until after the third year. Once we realize we can actually forecast as far as how much money we're going to make this school year or this year, then we can actually know whether we're going to hit that target or not. So we actually have a low target and we actually have a high target. And if we're somewhere in between those two numbers, then we know we're profitable.
As you mentioned earlier, a new charter bus is going to be $120,000 or so to buy, and the life expectancy of a charter bus is 3 years.
Yeah, the life expectancy, if you can get the juice out of it, 4 years.
4 years. Okay.
Yeah.
So, is part of this budgeting, because a lot of business owners, they go through and there are major expenses that they have to plan for. In your case, it's a new bus. Is part of that planning the amortization of the bus, saying, okay, we need to take $120,000, divide it by 4, and start putting money away? Is that part of the plan and figuring out, okay, by this date we're profitable?
Yes, and you get it. You hit a key point, and as far as budgeting, whether it's a monthly basis or at the end of the school year. So you can work your budget two ways. On our end, we budget that on a monthly basis because in our industry, you're not getting paid the same every month. You may get a little less one month, and then you may get a lot more the next month. So we have a certain number that we have to put aside to know that we're going to make it through the slow times and get ahead in the next school year. Now, when it comes to budgeting for your next bus, yes, then now you got to look at the specifics, what's coming in and what's going out, and how much more you can keep so that you know ahead of time and stay ahead of the game that you're going to be needing another bus at a certain time by next year or maybe the following year. So you got to start planning that out 1 or 2 years ahead so that by the time you hit that year mark, that bus doesn't go ta and fails on you. So you want to be able to have that newer bus in advance or before your bus tends to get a little old.
It's no secret that there's a lot of business owners that are struggling right now. What do you say to the business owner that is having a difficult time to encourage them and let them know that not all hope is lost?
Struggles are always going to come. You're always going to have shortfalls when you own a business, and that's something that I've learned. It's not a fairy tale, and it's not something that you wake up in the morning and everything is going to run perfect, because it's not. But I think that the best thing that as a business owner we can do is have a mindset of not giving up. Second thing for me is pay attention to the wife. Whatever the wife says, then that's what you got to run with. It's going to get difficult. We have difficult times, but you have to pursue. And if your business, if that's the business that you want to run, in my situation, we wanted to run the transportation business and it worked out for us. But yeah, it's scary. And in the beginning, it can be very scary. But once you run through the hurdles, the first year, the second year, by the third year, it should be profitable.
Juan, this has been a real treat. Thank you for joining us here on Small Business Celebration.
Well, thank you for having me.
And if Visioneers want to get in touch with you, how do they do that?
If you would like to get in touch with myself or our company, F&J Transportation, you can contact us through our website, which is fnjtransportation.com, or you can send us an email at fandjtrans@gmail.com.
And I'll be right back with a formula that will work wonders for you and your business. A formula that'll work wonders for you. My wife and I have a long-standing tradition when it comes to dinner at home. She cooks, I clean. And this is something we've been doing for years. And then Small Business Celebration came along, and a while ago I was under the gun to get an episode edited out and out in time for Visioneer Nation just like you. And I was busily editing in the office when she texted me and she said, dinner's ready. And I shut everything down and went inside the house, and I was telling her over dinner all the things that was going on with Small Business Celebration and the show and how I was behind the 8 ball. And when dinner was done, I stood up to clear the dishes, and she said, no, I got this. Go edit the show. And I said, but this is what we do. You cook, I clean. And I started grabbing some of the dishes, and she stood up and said, don't worry about it. I got this. Go edit the show. But I was like, but Tamla, she said, go edit the show. A little stunned, a bit perplexed, I wandered back into the office, finished editing the show, got it up just in time for Visioneers, just like you. But when I came back inside the house, it was completely dark. And when I went inside the bedroom, all the lights were off, and it was completely dark. And she was asleep. Tamla was not happy. I laid in bed that night thinking, what did I do? What did I say? And then it dawned on me. One of Tamla's love languages is the gift of service. She says, I love you by doing things for you and other people. And I had taken that away from her. I was telling her that I didn't love her. I was going to do this regardless, with or without her. Yeah, no wonder she was a little perturbed. So the next morning I got up and I apologized for what I had done. And she said, don't worry about it. I'll get over it. And not but 3 weeks later, guess what? Again, I was behind the 8 ball to get the show edited and up in time. And this time, when dinner happened, she said, Michael, I got the dishes. And this time, I smiled, gave her a peck on the cheek, and said, I love you. And I went in the office, edited the show, and when I was done, I came back out. The lights in the house were all up and going, and she was happily crafting away. All because I had taken the moment to look at the situation from her point of view. A formula that will work wonders for you. When you're in a situation, think about it from the other person's point of view. And who knows? You might be surprised for when they do something for you. A formula that will work wonders for you. I hope you enjoyed our conversation this week here on Small Business Celebration, and I hope you learned something that you can use today to grow a strong and profitable business. And we'll see you here again next week when we celebrate another small business making a big breakthrough.
The bathroom in the back of the charter bus gets cleaned out every single time the trip ends. My wife and I, in addition to being the president and vice president, we're also the bus cleaners. So we clean the buses after every single trip. Interestingly, we did have a bus that break down, and it was my wife's birthday. We had the family. We went out to dinner. We were all ordering our food when I get the phone call. We had a bus that was coming back from San Diego, and it broke down in the Riverside area. It was about 11 o'clock at night, and what I did was I had to tell my wife, I'm sorry, for me, the dinner's over, the birthday party is over. My wife, being who she is, she says no. She sends everybody home and says, I'm going with you. So we drove in a bus from Bakersfield down to the Riverside area, which took us about close to 3 hours. The students transported onto the good bus, and the driver drove them to Bakersfield. My wife and I stayed on the bus. We actually slept on the bus. And then the next morning, I contacted my mechanic in that area. And thank goodness he was actually available to come and support us with that mechanical issue. We stayed there until the afternoon. It was a tough night. The difference between a charter bus and a school bus is, in a school bus, the driver is by himself or herself with the children. There is no other adult. So the school bus driver has to make sure that he is or she is accounts for the kids that are on the bus. In a charter bus, we have a little bit more easier, where there's always a teacher, a chaperone, a coach or whatnot. who's in charge of making sure the kids, they handle themselves and we just drive the bus. The most interesting thing I found, or we have found in the bus that's left by a passenger is, believe it or not, money. There's rolls of money sometimes that either the students leave or the passenger leaves. And we have a holding area where we place those items for a certain amount of time. And guess what? If they don't call, you just bought me lunch. The thing not to say to your wife, who is your business partner, is, when is breakfast going to be ready? Because in our business, the trips start early in the morning. So early in the morning is when we are very busy. And we could be as busy as early as 4 or 5 in the morning, sometimes 3 in the morning. You go out and you make sure the buses are gone and people are getting transported and being okay. Then you come back and you can be a little grumpy when you come back because you didn't sleep well. So the last thing I want to say is, honey, is breakfast ready? The worst thing to say to a bus driver is, do you know where you're going? Absolutely, we know where we're going. We get that sometimes. And yeah, we have an itinerary every single time we drive, and we know exactly where the destination is, the address and whatnot. But yeah, it get kind of annoying. But I know that the people want to be secure. We want to make sure that we know where we're going. When a church bus dies and goes to heaven, it goes to either A, a junkyard, or B, you can try to make some money off of it and sell it to a dealer.